Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. And before we do get into this story, I just want to give you a bit of a warning. It does involve assault from mother-in-law on OP, who is pregnant at the time. And I'm going to tell you now because I feel like I have to tell you, the baby is okay in the story. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. So it's titled, Mother-in-law thinks I cheated on my dear husband because we're having a girl. Physically assaults me at 8 months pregnant. This is a long one, so strap in. I am 26 female and dear husband is 30 male. Just know mother-in-law is 70 years. Her and just no father-in-law had my dear husband later in life as a last chance to have a kid. Dear husband has a name like John William Smith. The name has been passed down for literally generations. I will also mention, as it's important, there's not been a girl born on his side of the family in more than 100 years. There's a huge running joke that the men in his family cannot produce female babies. So fast forward to our wedding day in 2017. I had a pretty good relationship with just no mother-in-law up until this point. Wedding was great, beautiful ceremony, funny speeches, everything was great. Really, until it's the end of the night and we're getting ready to leave to enjoy our honeymoon suite, and she looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Now go make us our insert dear husband's name, plus an extra Roman numeral." I nervously laughed and we departed. Well, ladies and gents, I indeed did make a beautiful baby with my dear husband over those 2 weeks, and who would have thought, a baby girl. Everyone was so shocked when we announced it was a girl, and most of the family denied it up until the moment she was born. That's when the horrible comments started. Whenever dear husband isn't around, just no mother-in-law and her family members will make snarky comments like, "I wonder where she got that nose, it's definitely not dear husband." For your information, my baby, as beautiful as she is strikingly obviously my dear husband's. She genuinely looks more and more like him as the first year has gone by, and even more so approaching 2. Well, as it would happen, we are now expecting our second baby, and yep, another girl. I begged dear husband not to tell mother-in-law the gender when we found out, as I just wanted to enjoy a bit more of this pregnancy before she ruined it. I had decided to keep the mean comments his mother made to me about our first daughter to myself, as she's old and in poor health, and I felt guilty about potentially ruining their relationship when she probably doesn't have many years left to be around. I figure I'll add here that mother-in-law isn't dying or anything, she's just had extremely poor health her whole life, smoking a pack plus of cigarettes a day, eats garbage constantly, drinks only Diet Coke, refuses exercise, etc. I literally offered this woman water once after she almost passed out from walking 15 steps, and she gagged and said, "That's disgusting. Water makes me nauseous. Get me my Diet Coke." So anyways, he insists on announcing it at our next visit, and holy shit y'all. As soon as she heard it was another girl, tears welled in her eyes and she started shaking her head back and forth and sobbing. She then started yelling at me, called me a whore, and demanded I get out of her house. Husband immediately stands up and starts yelling at her, asking what her problem is and that she needs to apologize to me and watch her mouth in front of her grandkids. She says through broken wails, "Not ours, not ours, those girls are not ours, she's a whore, a slut, my son did not make those girls." I started crying hysterically and pick up my daughter, who is utterly confused as to why daddy is yelling at grandma and mummy is now crying. Mother-in-law then looks at me and starts yelling, "I let you get away with it the first time. I took you in as family. I allowed my son to believe he fathered that brat, but I will not allow it again." Husband is now fucking pissed, y'all. Something I should mention here is that while husband prepared his whole life to having a son, he was thrown on his ass when our daughter was born. He never knew that he could love any girl in the world as much as he loves our daughter. He has made several comments over the past year and a half that he never knew how deep love could go before he held our baby girl. I can 100% assure you that if he had to save me, our daughter, or his mum, he'd save our daughter 10 out of 10 times. He gets extremely pissed and starts screaming at her that she is out of line and how dare she call his daughter names. He then goes on to say that we are leaving, and until she comes to her senses, she will never see any of us again. She tried to say something more, but he cuts her off and yells at her, "By the way, Mum, I love that little girl more than I ever loved you," as he is shutting us out the door. I cried and broke down and told husband all the little comments she made and her family have said to me when he's not around while we drive the 2 hours home. He was so angry at them all and has been amazing in comforting me through it. We went no contact for a few months and everything seemed to be going great. We blocked her and father-in-law's phone numbers and hadn't heard from them except through other relatives over Facebook, which we either told them not to attempt to relay messages from mother-in-law or they would be blocked, or ignored them completely. Then, when I was nearing my due date, we decided to be the bigger person and reach out to her and father-in-law and offer them a chance to make this right. She whined and whines that she misses husband and granddaughter. We agreed to meet for dinner at their house. After a few weeks for a proper talk and apology from her. We agreed that daughter should not be present, so my sister was set to babysit her. We arrive, dinner is served, and we're trying to make small talk when husband is like, "Yeah, Mum, this has all been nice, but we need to talk about what happened and things you said last time we were here. I know, and you know, that you owe my wife an apology." Mother-in-law then looks at husband and says, "Yes, you have the test." Husband replies, "What?" She says, "The paternity test. I'm not apologizing until I'm proven wrong, and we both know I'm right. You cannot be the father, and the fact that you have now apparently made 2 girls is ridiculous." Husband replies, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I start to cry and go to get up and grab my things and go to the car. Mother-in-law says, "Oh no you don't." She shoots up round the table and grabs my shirt, then proceeds to scream at me, "How dare you run away from this? You're a fucking whore and you need to own up to the problem." Husband screams at her to get her hands off me and starts to make his way towards us. She then decides that I cannot be allowed to leave at any cost with her son, so she slaps me as hard as she can across the face. I push her arm away from me as I let out a scream from the shock of being slapped. Husband then gets in between me and his mum and starts to scream at her. He tells father-in-law to call the cops right now. Father-in-law ignores him and tries to calm mother-in-law down, insisting that we can deal with this. Husband is furious and I'm hysterically crying. He grabs my hand and we're making our way to the door when mother-in-law grabs a snow globe from the shelf and throws it directly at me and hits me right in the back of my head. It didn't shatter or anything, but it did end up hitting me on the base and cut my head open. I fell to my knees from the pain, and before husband can put together what just happened, she is grabbing anything she can find to throw in my direction. I'm on my knees on the ground, holding my head with one hand and my belly with the other, being almost 9 months pregnant as a cascade of random items are being thrown at me. Husband is screaming at the top of his lungs for her to stop as she proceeds to try and get close to kick me as hard as she can. Thankfully, she is old and in bad health, so she loses momentum quickly, and as a last resort, husband pushes his mum and she falls back into a shelf by the front door and he rushes me out. I'm crying and freaking out and yelling she kicked my stomach over and over as he drives me to the hospital. I end up getting 6 stitches in my head and being monitored in hospital for 4 days because she kicked my belly. The baby ended up being fine and the hospital demanded we file a police report. We find out that when husband pushed his mum into the shelf, she ended up breaking 2 fingers and is claiming the excessive force hurt her neck very badly. Father-in-law called an ambulance for her and she claimed that me and husband assaulted her in the doorway after they refused to let us in for a free dinner. Cops showed up and took our side of the story and compared our own report that we filed once at the hospital. They told us that mother-in-law is demanding to press charges against husband for assault, while we were pressing charges against her. So then my husband gets arrested but then quickly released after father-in-law is forced to tell the truth, and mother-in-law then gets arrested for my assault. Father-in-law is now begging us to drop the charges as no one was hurt. What? I was fucking hurt and my baby could have been hurt, and that we are being cruel to lock up an elderly woman. He insists that we drop charges, saying it was all a misunderstanding, and he puts mother-in-law in counselling. Thing is, because of my injuries were documented in hospital, we literally can't drop the charges even if we were stupid enough to do so, because it was filed through a hospital. There's no way it can just go away. We're currently at home waiting for baby number 2 to arrive, and I'm on a strict bed rest order and husband has taken a week off work to help pamper me and take care of daughter. I I asked husband if once baby number 2 arrives, we get paternity tests for both girls to send to his mum in jail as a huge fuck you. He thinks it's a hilarious idea and thinks we should make copies and send them to all the relatives who were entertaining his mum's craziness, along with a written letter saying goodbye, that none of them will ever see us or his daughters again, and that he hopes they're all happy, knowing that they ruin any chance they have to a relationship with him or our children ever again. We're thankful that our baby girl is okay through all of this, and so relieved that we decided against bringing our older daughter to their house that night. We can only imagine what could have happened had she been struck with something. My due date is currently 8 days away, and I have an appointment the day of to discuss induction if she hasn't arrived by then. And baby number 1 was a week overdue and had to be induced last time. Any support for us is wonderful and greatly appreciated. I'll update if any more craziness happens in the future. OP edits the post, which says, "Holy crap, I never imagined this would get so much attention and responses, so much so the comments are at capacity. I've read most of your guys' responses and I want to thank you all for your kind words and support. I wish I could respond to everyone individually. A family who got a girl after several generations and they took out a billboard. Holy shit, do I envy the joy and pure welcoming this family got. For those of you with similar experiences who had a girl after several generations whose family was overjoyed, that actually makes me feel good for you all, as it makes me realize that most families out there are wonderful, supportive people, and it makes my heart happy. Thank you so much, kind strangers, for the awards, and holy crap, I cannot thank you enough. Father-in-law is making mother-in-law's bail this morning and she'll be released from holding. We are going to go through with filing a restraining order and a no contact order. They have to be 2 separate filings in my state. We will receive a court date within a few weeks, so we have time to prepare. Husband spoke with an attorney this morning and the attorney mentioned that it would be a great idea to file for a paternity test through the court. It would be a lot cheaper this way and there can't be any question about the authenticity this way. It also won't be presented until it is used as evidence for the case. Husband has been nothing short of amazing. He's supportive and very protective of me and his girls, but I know he's having a hard time dealing with the emotions of his mother potentially serving a jail sentence. I really feel awful that this whole situation has happened this way. I feel guilt that maybe if I had done a paternity test with daughter 1 when the mean comments started, then all of this could have been prevented. Husband thinks I'm being too hard on myself. I didn't cause any of this and he's confident that mother-in-law would have caused problems no matter what. It's all waiting for now. Waiting for the baby to arrive, waiting for confirmation on the restraining order, no contact order, waiting for a court date, waiting to see how much my hospital bill is going to cost us. Husband is out right now with daughter 1, getting me breakfast and some snacks. I cannot tell you all how much I love this man and the family we have made. Family is what you make it. You don't have to settle for disrespect and seek an approval. He has made me realize how much he truly loves and believes in me at a huge cost. I feel so bad he now views his mother as a despicable stranger, and I hope that me and the girls can continue to fill this new void for him going forward. I'll update in a few weeks once our new baby is here and court stuff is done. Thank you again everyone for allowing me this platform for support. And it does come with multiple updates as well. And this one, it made me feel sad at the very end of this particular post, not just because of everything that they've gone through with this absolute batshit craziness, but the guilt that OP feels about it, feeling that, they could have prevented it. When I agree with husband in this, that OP's being too hard on themselves, because I think mother-in-law would have done some crazy shit anyway. In the second paragraph, when they're retreating to the honeymoon suite and mother-in-law turns to her and says, "Now go make us like a baby," kind of thing, or whatever it was. That's creepy as shit, man. It gave me shivers. And I can't believe the cheek of the father-in-law asking you to drop charges after this. I'm wondering where this update's going to go, because I just don't feel like the craziness ends with that. That kind of craziness just doesn't disappear. We've been in jail for a little bit. So then OP updated the post around 15 or so days later, who said, "Hello everyone, no link to the original post as it was removed by moderators. My original post gained quite a bit of attention and was then posted in a YouTube video, which made the moderators decide to take it down. For clarification, I don't care that it was shared outside of Reddit, as I have not given any specific names or details that could identify myself or others involved, nor will I ever give those details. So that being said, I don't care if it's shared and I'd appreciate if the mods could leave my post up. I feel I need to clarify this, as I've received many messages from people angry and accusing me of deleting my original post when that was not the case. I even attempted to have it put back up without success. So, brief of my original is, I have 2 daughters. Husband's side of the family hadn't had a girl born in generations. Mother-in-law came to the conclusion I must have cheated on husband, as he can't make girls. She then assaults me while almost 9 months pregnant with our second daughter. Husband accidentally injures his mum while trying to protect me. Hospital calls police and we file a report. His mum files her own report, but it is soon clear that husband didn't do anything intentionally, just protecting me. Baby does end up being alright in the end, even after mother-in-law kicked me a handful of times while I was on the ground. The doctors explained it to me as imagine putting an egg inside of a water balloon and then slapping it several times. It's hard to make contact with the actual egg and crack it, but still a scary situation. Yeah, that comparison didn't ease my mind at all, but they monitored me and baby for a few days and I was released and put on rest until she arrived. So this is where it turns for the worst. We are home and husband has been a rock, very supportive and comforting me the whole time. We went no contact with mother-in-law and father-in-law, and I genuinely thought he was on my side. I come up with the idea to do a paternity test on the girls and send them to mother-in-law as to get back at her, and it seemed like a great idea. We got in contact with a lawyer and he suggested that we take the paternity test through the court so we have it as evidence and then the results couldn't be contested as fraudulent or fake. That sounded great, right? Well, over the next few days, husband got more and more depressed. He started trying to get me to entertain the idea of minimizing mother-in-law's actions and chalking up her behavior to old age. While I'm aware that she's older, she's pretty sound-minded. I told him that she'll be getting full screenings for her mental health when we go to court, and that while yes, she's old, she doesn't get to assault me and accuse me of horrible things and use her age as an excuse. If she's found to have some mental issues going on, then I can deal with that, but that doesn't mean I ever want to be around her or have her around my kids. A few days go by and I'm nearing my induction day because baby girl isn't making her entrance, and I find out that husband has been talking with father-in-law and mother-in-law behind my back. We get in a big fight and he tells me that he still wants his mum to meet our granddaughter and that we can put this aside until the baby is here. And afterwards, once she's gotten to meet her, we can resume the legal issues. I am crying at this point as I thought he was supporting me through this, but in reality, he caved in no less than 4 days to his mum. I reminded him that we put in for a restraining order and no contact order, and he has now broken it by contacting them. His response, well, the no contact order is issued to you, not me, and the restraining order hasn't been approved yet, so mother-in-law can come meet baby girl too before we get approved without breaking any rules. All I could do was shake my head and cry. I put my foot down and said absolutely not, and I couldn't believe he'd let his mum around me or the baby after she could have killed one of us. He said that I was overreacting as the baby was not injured and she wasn't actually trying to hurt the baby, just me. What? She kicked my very pregnant belly repeatedly after she threw a fucking snow globe at my head. We got in a huge fight about me not forgiving her and holding grudges and being unreasonable, and eventually he just left. Where'd he go? Yep, his mum's house a few hours away. He then called me sobbing and told me that if I could see his mum right now, I'd understand. Apparently, when he pushed her while she was assaulting me, he indeed broke 2 fingers and she sprained her neck when she fell back into a shelving unit. She's laid up on the sofa in her living room, can't walk and in severe depression. I should feel awful according to him. The least I could do was let her meet her new grandchild and then figure out where to go from there. I'm so infuriated at this point because not only is he retreated to his mum's house, he's left me alone with our oldest daughter, who is 2, while I'm supposed to be in bed rest, with fucking stitches in my head and an 8-pound baby in my uterus who refuses to come out, and I am so exhausted. He doesn't come home for the next 4 days until I'm supposed to check in the hospital for my scheduled induction. My sister comes to watch my oldest daughter, and husband takes me to the hospital for the induction. We get set up and they are poking me with things, shoving arms up where they don't belong, pumping me with pitocin, apologies pronunciation, and waiting to see if the baby will come. He mostly sat in the room on his tablet, as I was admittedly pretty cold and grumpy with him still and wasn't acknowledging him very much. Finally, I started making progress with labour and things were going well. Baby was starting to move down and I was nearing the point where I needed to push. He He did end up putting his tablet away and trying to get more involved, and at this point, I wasn't going to push the support away as I was literally trying to push a baby at me with no drugs. Finally, the baby started to crown, and husband looks at the baby's head, looks at the nurse standing next to the doctor and asks, "When do you do the paternity test?" I stopped mid-push, looked at my husband and screamed, "What the fuck?" The nurse was silent, looking back and forth between me and husband. The doctor then looks at husband and says, "Sir, we're here to deliver and take care of babies. If you have other personal relationship issues, you need to figure that out afterwards. We focus on baby and mum. This is not the place to ask questions like that." I immediately start crying hysterically and babbling stuff like it's not like that, it's his baby, his mum is a psycho and stuff. I'm so fucking mortified at the thought that these nurses and doctor now think there's a chance my baby isn't my husband's and there's no way I can explain the situation to them. I immediately felt judged by the nurse and couldn't help but feel like I'd been robbed of a beautiful moment. My mind completely shut down, and the short time between crowning and when the baby comes out ended up taking an extremely long time because of how distraught I was. I was so angry at husband. I asked him how he could do that to me, how he could ask that in front of the doctor and nurses when he knows it's his daughter, and it was my idea to do the test in the first place. After the baby came out, I just held her and she was beautiful and perfect, but I was distraught. I couldn't look at husband, and I hate to admit this, but I wouldn't let him hold her. I was just so angry. He left, and when he came back about an hour later, he said his mum wanted pictures of the baby. He took out his phone and I smacked it out of his hand, and he got angry and left. My sister had to pick us up from the hospital and took us home 2 days later. In my state, you have to take the baby back in 2 days after being home to do tests and a checkup to make sure the baby is maintaining weight and there's no obvious signs of neglect. So we took her in for the check and then went to the clinic to do the paternity test the same day. The next few days at home were awful. I can't even look at him, and he has avoided being around me or the baby for days. He barely has even looked at her and is practically ignoring our oldest daughter. We got in a fight because I wasn't trying to breastfeed the baby and my oldest daughter was crying because Netflix wasn't working. And I started crying because I was so overwhelmed, and he just looked at our daughter and said, "Mummy didn't pay the Netflix bill because she's mad at grandma." I yelled at him not to say crap like that to a child. He said he just thought I didn't pay it because his mum uses our account at her house. I just forgot to pay it, had nothing to do with that. He made several comments to our daughter over the next few days like, "Daddy's going to see grandma, you can't come because mummy hates grandma," and leave me with a hysterical 2-year-old and a newborn. I'm not going to lie. I know that I'm dealing with some crazy hormones and this is a horrible patch, but I seriously considered telling him I wanted a divorce right there and then. He left. I tried my best to cool off, but I couldn't. I've actually convinced myself that I want a divorce over his behavior. Am I going crazy? Is this enough to consider leaving him? We got the results for the paternity test 3 days later, and for anyone who ever doubted me, Bill can ride with mother-in-law to Crazy Town. He's the father. He cried and told me he never doubted it and that he knew he was the dad. I told him that we could do a second test on our oldest daughter and that I was going to start packing our stuff and I was going to move in with my sister. He bawled and said he didn't need one for our oldest daughter. I demanded we take one, as I would want it as proof for court whenever we get to have my case heard. I told him that I never cheated on anyone in my life, including him, and how much it hurt me that he said that in the hospital room, and made the nurses and doctors think he doubted our daughter at all. He tried to apologize and hug me, but I pushed him away and told him he should leave while I packed up some things. My oldest daughter, my baby, and myself are now staying at my sister's house, and he has told me that he refuses to take the second paternity test for our oldest daughter and is going to make his mum write out a very long apology letter to me. He wants me to come home, but I just can't even look at him the same. I feel like all the love I had for him has been ripped away, and I feel so angry towards him. I'm just trying to take care of our girls, but he won't stop calling me. I told him he can see the girls anytime he wants, but he can't take them near his mum, and she is not allowed to be around them at all. I'm going to give myself a few weeks to sort out my feelings, but is this not enough to justify a divorce? I don't exactly want to go through with a divorce, but I really just can't look at him the same, and I don't know how I could ever get past this. Opie added another update which says, "My husband is punishing our toddler and new baby unless I take him back and stop divorce." And this went on from a couple of months after the last post, which says, "Okay, long story short, I, 27 female, gave my husband 31 male divorce papers 3 months ago, and he refuses to see our baby since and is saying that I'll be a single mum if I go through with it. We had a huge rocky patch that ended up in me just completely falling out of love with him and ultimately deciding that I just couldn't stay with him after he showed me how much his mother's influence can control him. I have a mother-in-law from hell. To make a super long story short, she hated that we were having a second daughter, accused me of cheating, and hospitalized me when I was heavily pregnant. My husband was standing up for me at first, but quickly jumped on his mum's crazy train. He left me with both our girls days after I gave birth to our youngest to go stay with his mum, said nasty, hurtful things to our toddler, and used our new baby as leverage to guilt trip me into asking for leniency in his mum's assault hearing towards me. We had a paternity test done on our new daughter to prove she was his and that I didn't cheat on him. And as soon as it was proven that she was his, it was like a switch flipped. He refused to test our oldest as if that would prove he trusted me and was begging me to forgive him and was being sickeningly sweet to me, and to be honest, it was disgusting to see how he could just flip on me like that. And what really messed me up was that he went from a loving, amazing father to our oldest to just plain horrendous to her. He treated her like garbage for the few weeks after that incident, even though he had been an amazing father to her until his mum made stupid accusations. He called her names, like called her a whiny brat, annoying toad. This is particularly upsetting because she's terrified of frogs and toads. Told her to go to your mum when she was upset or crying or hurt, and told her things were my fault or that mummy hates me and grandma so you don't get to come with me, and refused to even hold our newborn and avoided looking at her. Prior to all this happening, she was his princess, baby girl, sweetheart, etc. She's only 2.5, so I know she doesn't grasp the mean stuff he said that much, but it still showed a huge change in her personality. She started putting herself in time out when he would leave because she thought she did something wrong and started to say sorry whenever he was around for no reason. She started having big tantrums and acting out of nowhere, so I don't think she understood the things he was saying to her. I told him mistreatment is mistreatment, even if you don't think the toddler can understand you, and that it was disgusting what he was saying to her, and to get over himself. I went to stay with my sister and I've just not been able to look at him the same way. I can't look at him and feel love at all, not even the slightest bit. He's just the guy who fathered my girls at this point. Now it's been 4 months, almost since we got the paternity test, and he's been trying to win me back ever since, but I told him I just don't love him after the way he treated our kids over his mum's ridiculous accusations. How can I be with someone who can just abandon his kids over an accusation, and more so be so horrible to them? I gave him divorce papers after a month of staying with my sister, and he refuses to do anything about it. He keeps saying, "You're not leaving me. The day you leave me is the day you become a single mum." I'm so hurt for the babies, and my oldest is quite obviously aware of her dad's absence, but he won't even come to see them until I drop the divorce and take him back. His mum is over the moon and has been vague looking on Facebook about how happy she is for her son to find a new future, but has also posted about how she can't see her grandchildren for pity. She can't be around them because she assaulted me while I was pregnant and was found to have been trying to harm the baby. But she's portraying me as some bitter daughter-in-law keeping the kids away to play victim to her friends. What the hell do I do? Do I embrace being a single mum, even if he accepts we are done now? How to prevent him popping in and out of their everyday life? I don't want him being an arsehole and punishing them by staying away when he's not getting his way. Opie then posts another one a couple of months later which says, "I'm pregnant and my ex-husband is going to lose his mind. Advice on how to navigate." My ex-husband and I have been divorced officially for 22 months. Our marriage imploded after our second daughter was born because his family have a weird obsession with boys and implied I cheated because we had girls. Everyone made it clear that girls were inferior, and he sided with his family after they verbally and physically hurt me. That's putting it lightly, but that's the gist. He's been with his new girlfriend for about 6 months and only sees our girls once every week or so. After we divorced, I got really close with a long-term friend from college. He told me that he always had feelings for me, but we were always in relationships with other people, so the timing never worked out. Well, fast forward and we've been dating for 16 months, engaged for 4 months. He proposed on our 1-year anniversary. He's known my girls their whole lives. It's been a long time since I've been this happy. Well, I'm 16 weeks pregnant, and we just found out that we're having a baby boy. I haven't told my ex-husband yet, and I just kind of figured he'd get the idea when I'm visibly pregnant. We will start telling the girls in the next few weeks. I know I obviously have to address the situation with my ex. I know he's going to ask if we're having a girl or a boy, and I am unprepared for how he will react about baby being a boy. Or more realistically, how to navigate the situation when he does eventually find out baby is a boy. I guarantee his reaction will be bad. I just don't know if it's better to announce that we're having a boy now or after he is born. My sister says to not tell anyone the sex and say we'll wait until birth to be surprised. But all my mum and friends are saying to announce it now, so he has a few months to process his feelings about our daughter's new sibling. And then a post came up, which apparently is from the husband, was posted on Reddit as well, which we'll cover in just a moment. But just a quick comment, and I just gotta say, parts out there absolutely broke my heart. What OP's going through, absolutely, but when the kids get involved as well and they're being treated that way, oh man, brings me to absolute tears hearing that. And on the announcement thing, I think you just announce it when you want to announce it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. He doesn't have to know. He can find out through a third party if you like, it's up to him to manage his feelings. So now we're going to the post, which is the husband, titled, "I want my pregnant ex-wife and family back." This came around 20 or so days later. Full disclosure, I fucked up bad. I know that. 2 years ago, me and my ex-wife welcomed our second daughter into the world. My mum put thoughts into my head about the paternity of my girls shortly before our birth. In my family, only boys had been born on my side for several generations. I thought my parents and my now ex-wife got along well, but it all exploded when we were expecting our second daughter. My wife told me that my mum had been implying that she cheated for a long time and making nasty digs at her when I wasn't present. But she didn't tell me because she thought I'd side with my mum. In hindsight, she was actually right. I did let my mum get to me and my relationship exploded. I went through a shitty time where I wasn't being a good dad. Every time I'd see my girls, I'd find things that would convince me they weren't mine. I went to stay with my parents after a nasty fight between my wife and mum. I know it was a huge mistake and it ultimately ended my marriage. My wife insisted on paternity tests to prove it, and I just knew then that there was no way she cheated. I begged her not to do the test, but she was adamant. After the test, she told me that she just couldn't look at me the same after I sided with my mum, and she just didn't love me the same way anymore. I went down a spiral and refused a divorce and said if she hated me that much, I'd sign away my rights to the kids and she could go be a single mum if she felt that way. I know that was wrong. We did get divorced 3 months later, and it's been 2 years. I see my girls every weekend, pick up the oldest from daycare 3 days a week. Things have gotten a lot better, and I feel like we have a good co-parenting relationship going on. But there's this wall that she keeps up around me. My ex-wife is engaged to the guy she's been dating for a year, and I've been seeing my new girlfriend on and off for 7 months. I just found out that my ex-wife is pregnant. I asked if she knew the gender yet, and she said yes, it's a boy. This is ripping the band-aid off. If you need time to process, I understand. I was shocked, and she said it with zero emotion, and walked inside with my daughters and closed the door. I feel like I'm watching a bad movie play out where some guy gets to play house with my family and I'm a total outsider. My girlfriend has been talking about marriage and kids, and I'm nowhere near ready to even think about that with her. I'm starting to feel like I want my old life back. I got really drunk last night and tried to call my ex-wife, but she didn't answer. I'm glad she didn't, because I would have said some really stupid stuff. Take me back. Let's give our family another chance. I'd even take on a new baby as my own, etc. I know it's pathetic, and I know it's all my fault. I just don't know how to go about this. I have to pretend I'm okay with this. I don't even know how I can interact with her without spilling my heart and desires. Edit. I cut off my mum 8 months ago, and was brutal when I did so. She knows that I regret ever listening to her BS, and she's no longer a part of my life. It was her or my kids, and I chose my kids. You all act like I dropped my girls off on the side of the road. I'm still actively involved with my children. Edit 2. I'm looking into therapy, but you guys act like a shrink will make me magically stop loving her. Signing out for a while because some of you guys are huge assholes. Thanks. Bloody hell, what a journey this one has been. An absolute roller coaster of emotions for me. I can't imagine what OP went through. And one of the things flashed back is like when she was giving birth, they were there and the husband turns round to the doctor while she's in the middle of all this and goes, "So, about those paternity tests." Like, what the fuck? But what do you guys make of this one? What advice would you give to OP in this situation? It seems like they are moving on with their lives now, and I don't think there's any way they would ever reconcile it. I just think it's impossible. And I'm glad that they're sort of moving on with their lives and seem to be moving in the right direction as well. Very happy for OP in that respect. But as I said, I turn it to you guys. What do you guys make of this? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time always means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today